You are now listening to Talking Transparency, the podcast where transparents talk transparently, hosted by Cody Connor and Melissa Luxon.
Okay, welcome back, listeners, to Talking Transparency, the podcast where transparents talk transparently. Melissa here.
I'm Cody.
And I'm Thea.
All right, and we have Mel and Amore as our guests tonight. They are with Thriving Men of Color.
Thriving Transmen of Color.
Never miss the trans bit.
I didn't. I know. I see. I should get.
And
my
never
notes.
miss the thriving part. I love the
thriving
part.
trans men
my
of color.
favorite part. Tell us about yourself. How'd you guys meet? What made you, start Thriving Transmen of Color?
So, I met Amore in 2017, and we met at Hershey Bar. It's closed, not open. It's actually funny because dating is horrible as a trans person, I would say personally. And I was kind of at that point, was like, I'm done dating. I'm not dating anyone. And then like this beautiful trans woman who was liking my pictures on Facebook, have you mind, we met and she's like, hey, do you want a drink? And I'm like, me? You want me to get a drink? I had never had a woman, like, for real, that was remotely interested in me, I think, spend like $1 on me. So I was like, you want to buy me a drink? And she was like, yeah. So, and then I was like, well, do you want some food? She said, no, I already got myself some food. So I was just like, throw them back or whatever. And then our second date, we went to, was it? The Sandbar. Okay. So we went to the Sandbar and we were like in the car, like making out. And her best friend comes out. And I'm like.
Tapping on the window.
And I'm like, oops, like I just got caught. Like I was a kid in high school. And then I think from that day on, I literally probably spent almost every day. If she wasn't at my house, I was at her house kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I just gave up my apartment, ended up moving with her because it was like a storage unit.
Okay, how long?
What?
How long did you keep your place?
I mean, my lease was up, and I was just like, I'm not renewing it because I literally wasn't there.
I think he had another like 3 months on the lease.
My husband was 6 months. First time he slept over, he literally never left and kept his room, I'm like, I said, oh, you still paying rent on that storage unit over there since you've literally never left? So you did the same thing, but mine was 6 months. My husband.
Because we were talking online for a long time, and then we met up in person. And my one of my good friends at the time, she took me there, and I was nervous because I had never dated a trans man and been with a trans man, so it wasn't new for me as well. But I was excited. I was still nervous. And then when I met him, we instantly clicked, you know, and the second day I went with her, she took me to the second day as well. So I didn't leave with her. So she was like, feeling salty. She came outside, knocked on the window like, I said, well, I'm a ride home with him.
But the best friend has to check in and make sure everything's okay.
Right. But, it was some good times, and then we got engaged in 2019. We went to one of his fraternity brothers' wedding in California. So that was nice.
Are you blushing?
It was nice and romantic. So
look at
I'm light skinned. I'm always red.
you blushing. You just like making.
So
blush.
definitely want to go back to California because that's kind of like us.
Aww.
Sentimental, place.
Like you want to move to California?
No.
Oh, okay.
I definitely want to go back and visit.
Okay, just to go visit. Okay.
So if we were to ask, like, what is one thing you absolutely have to do before you leave this earth? It's going back to California. Or are we talking somewhere else?
Somewhere else. California is definitely somewhere I want to go back to, but I do want to go somewhere. Like the Bahamas or, because I love water. Anything with like pretty crystal blue water where I can see the bottom.
Yep.
That's what I want to,
exactly.
That's what I really want to see. So
absolutely. I would love to get down there and see the crystal blue waters. I'll tell you what, talk about thriving. That's the definition. So I have to ask, what prompted y'all to start TTMOC,
So what I would say is, I think that it started in April 20th of 2022. However, we had meetings, and Amore has been with me since we had meetings and we were talking about like, oh, we got to start an organization and we got to do this, and we got to prioritize trans men. We got to prioritize trans men of color. And I think when you lived in Hampton Roads your whole life, I lived in Richmond for like 2 years when I started transitioning. But when you've been out in the community and you've seen how whitewashed it can be, when you see how there's trans women in positions, but nothing for trans men, and you see all this, it's like, no, we got to do something differently. But I think really what made it possible, and really, I just want to take a minute and just shout out to my mentor. If it wasn't for Darnisha Duncan Boyd, I'm not for sure Thriving Transmen of Color would exist. But also too, if it wasn't for being able to be in the leadership that I was in, this leadership cohort that me and Amore went. Amore went in 2023, but I did my cohort in 2022. But if I hadn't had that experience and I hadn't had that knowledge, I don't think that I would have started Thriving Transmen of Color. And it's a really great cohort for folks if they're interested in it. They give you a lot of information, like as far as information on funding, information on, like education around advocacy, and what advocacy looks like. They have one-on-one sessions with you. And with all that being said, with those sessions, it gives you that knowledge that you need. But so I did my cohort in 2022 with my mentor, Darnisha Duncan Boyd, and it was called Owning Our Power Black Leadership Cohort, Monica Roberts Freedom School. So owning your power, that's really significant, right? And honestly, truthfully, I swear to God, that's what I did. I took that education, I took that knowledge, I took everything that was not only taught to me, but also aimed to inspire me. And it did. And I remember writing the bylaws, and I remember I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this. I remember paying the money for the 501c3. Like, I remember like having my first event, and I'm like, yeah, this is what we're doing. I remember taking money from my check, like, okay, I'm setting this aside and setting this $75 every 2 weeks.
Real. It's very real.
Yes.
And you have to go through the motions, and like any business, which a nonprofit is a business, is the same, right? You have the passion behind it, right? But it's very real when you go out and you actually just fill out the paperwork. Mm-hmm. Taking $75 doesn't matter how long it takes you to get to a place where you can buy your first thing that you need for the organization, as long as you take every little step that you need to. That's awesome.
And how good did it feel when that 501c3 letter came from the IRS? Come on, that was a day, right?
Yeah.
That was a good day.
He'd been talking about starting his nonprofit for a while. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of volunteer work, and and I would hear him say a lot like he want a space for trans men, so that they can be heard and be visible, and so I'm just glad that it's really getting off the ground, and I'm just happy to see him fulfilling his dream, with Thriving Transmen of Color. So I am here to support, and I'm just glad that we are taking the right steps. So
that's great.
Speaking of work, you guys foster kids.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Tell us about that. I mean, that's amazing. That's
awesome.
I know.
So my older sister, she actually came from the foster care system. She lived with me. She raised me. She taught me how to ride my bike. She taught me how to tie my shoes. She's actually a teacher. At one point, she was a principal. But here she is, this amazing soul who is very supportive. She beat up my first bully, who's tried to take my shoe. She jumped right on their back. I told my middle sister, she did nothing about it. I told my older sister, and she was like, where is at? Where's he at? Like, it was real. And I think like growing up on just understanding, like, we never treated her differently. I mean, she didn't need, like, my dad didn't need to physically be her biological dad. My mom didn't physically need to be her biological mother to know that she was loved, to know that she was amazing. We, I I remember like when I found out, I was like, oh, okay, like it wasn't this really big thing because she had always been very active in my life and always been a part of my life. So when I became an adult and me and Amore, we were stable, had secure jobs, were able to provide for ourselves, I was like, we need to be foster parents. We need to do this. But I already knew as a child, I would say, that my youth wasn't the best youth, but my youth was, I had issues because of how I identified gender wise, how I identified sexually wise. And I grew up in a Christian home, whereas my sister, who was like, you know, you're my brother, I love you, you know what I'm saying? My mother didn't really come to terms with it so quickly.
Right.
And my father, you know, he always wanted a son, but I essentially didn't know, was I going to be that son that he actually wanted, or was I going to be that son that he was ashamed of?
Right.
So when it came time to change my name, when it came time for me to go on this journey, I really didn't include my family so much. But when I had came out as a lesbian or when I came out as bisexual too, both those times they didn't go very well. So I didn't think the trans coming out was gonna go well, and it didn't go too well. But over the years, you know, we've got to a better space.
Was with your parents at any point in the where you are now? Okay, do you talk about your childhood and say, did you miss that, or did you see that? And have they come to, you know, any space now where they're like, you know, if I'm being honest with myself and how I'm, you know what I mean, and how I parented you as a young, you know, as a young child, this is what I could have done differently. This is how I could have responded differently. Or how do they feel now?
I would say that growing up in a Black household, my parents ain't do nothing wrong. My parents raised me, and they're not going to admit to any flaws. It wouldn't be something that they would talk about. In fact, my transness isn't something that we just have conversations about. It's more so she sees the changes. Okay, well, I guess you are becoming a man, and I didn't know it was possible. I remember telling my mom, because she found out from my sisters, because of course they told on me. And her first question was, are you going to have a big wee-wee? And that was a very important thing to my mother for the first time, me telling her. And I was like, wow, Mom, it's not about what's in my pants. Like, wow. And yes.
Priorities. Family priorities.
Yeah.
There.
I mean,
Everybody's starting their learning process from a different level.
Exactly.
right. And how about you?
Me, on the other hand, my family was a little bit more accepting when we transitioning. I did transition right after high school. I was very flamboyant during high school. Like, I did ROTC. I still wore eyeshadow. Like, I still was like very much flamboyant like my senior year. My brothers were very supportive. They say they always knew. My mom, she was always very supportive. She was kind of like in denial my first year. Like, she was like, my child isn't gay, or, you know, like, but she was accepted. I had a few family members that didn't agree, you know, with my lifestyle. I just chose not to have them valid or not present in my life, you know. So I didn't really have it hard far as family wise, you know, far as being accepted. And I feel like that's needed a lot. For our trans kids, because it starts at home. So when you don't have that support at home, you don't feel valid a lot of times. I mean, it's sad to say, you know, but you look for that from your family first. You look for that validation. So I feel like it's very important. One reason why I wanted to foster, because I did want to have that experience of having that mother experience of raising a child up, being able to express love, you know, being able to, I know I wasn't able to have kids of my own, so that was always the reason why I wanted to, you know, foster and adopt, because I still want to adopt a newborn little girl. I have 2 little girls, so.
And
One
what
day-
ages have you? So, what age ranges have you taken? Like,
We
what's the
have foster
youngest
kids
to
from
the?
different
Yeah.
different ages.
Yeah.
But I really do want to adopt a child one day. It's very expensive, believe it or not, to adopt
Oh,
a child. It's thousands
is
and thousands of dollars.
Very expensive. It's
And you would think it
it's a
wouldn't
racket.
be so bad, because it's so many
Right.
kids who need a home, but it is very
Right.
expensive.
Well,
But it-
capitalism.
Yeah.
You know.
But when you become foster to adopt parents, you always have that availability to one day become a adoptive parent when it's necessary as well. So
Okay.
that's one good perk as well.
Great. So, have you had like toddlers?
No.
No, not toddlers yet. No.
Yeah, we're
Look,
open
Mel
to,
was quick to be like, no.
We get a lot of teenagers.
So one of our very good friends, trans man, lives in California and has adopted, still going through the courts, I believe, with one, and has adopted has an older child from previous relationship and adopted the child, and best, like literally the best. They're the best parents as a couple, and how have you dealt? I guess my question, because I know how he has had to handle different things dealing with the schools, because they do have children like Todd starting, newborn, really, honestly, from the time that they had initially gotten like emergency custody was newborn. So have you, you've had teenagers, but you still have to go through, dealing with the schools and something that, Cody and I, that's how Cody and I met, was school board meetings and what's going on with LGBTQ plus rights and what they're trying to do in schools. So what have you seen?
So what I would say is getting the kids enrolled in school, very difficult, no matter how you do it. Like when you have social services try to get them enrolled in school, it's still a problem when they do it. When you do it yourself, then the documentation that they need. Granted, we've only dealt with the city of Newport News because that's where we reside at.
Okay.
But I've had conversations with the people that work for the school board. I've had conversations with, the higher up people at different schools. Some schools a little bit easier, like the city of Hampton. To get one of my foster kids enrolled, it was really not that hard. Mm-hmm. But for like some of the schools, like Huntington Middle, they were like, oh, we need a mortgage statement. We need a utility statement. Mm-hmm. And then I sent them the mortgage statement. We can't take this mortgage statement. We need a different mortgage statement. Mm-hmm. I said, it's on my driver's license. Like, the requirements that you need to get a loan are easier requirements than it is to get a kid in school.
To enroll a child in school.
And then don't let the kid, and with foster kids, they may have more problematic experiences. So one of our placements was a gangster, probably to say the least. And they were like, well, we need to have this meeting to figure out what we're going to do with this child. I said, well, you knew earlier this week that this child was coming to your school. You didn't think to have the meeting. They were like, the registration wasn't completed. I said, well, granted, how, we were going to get the registration complete. So you didn't think to get this kid this meeting. And then they have these meetings. They have meetings where they sit down. It's called a bid meeting. I said, so the people that are in the bid meeting, they're not with the people that are actually at the school. So they can't help the registration process be a little bit easier. So, and I'm a very vocal person. So I was like, hey, I'm just giving you feedback for the areas of improvement so you could do things differently. But imagine if I was at one of those school board meetings. I think that the issues with the trans kids, I think I'd be done shut it down, which is actually on my list to go to talk about the different things, because it reminds me when I was a child, I didn't have a supportive home. So going to school, that wasn't my safe place either. Because I was being bullied and I was being taunted. And at that time I was already in men's clothes. But because I didn't have a supportive home, my mother would take my men's clothes and she would give them to my uncle. So then I would be in women's or female clothes and I would be so uncomfortable in these clothes. But I was like literally if I messed up in school, like if I got in trouble, like I got a call home. I remember my dad coming bringing me these jeans. And I was like, I don't want to wear these jeans. He's like, put these jeans on. My dad beat me in the middle of Woodside and made me put on these girl pants as a form of punishment. Like, so, I mean, my parents, I don't think they could act completely oblivious to my transness, but they were very much so in denial about it. I remember asking to be on the basketball team because the folks that look like me, they played basketball. My mom said, absolutely not. Granted, I really couldn't play anyway, so I was just trying to be the water boy, but she wasn't going to let me do that.
She wasn't gonna, no. Well, and so you have this experience, and I do think it's really important that school boards know and that you talk where your kids go to school about the importance of the support at home. Because there's so many kids that just don't have it.
And I think it's harder for kids that may have discipline issues or problems in the past. A lot of times with foster kids, they may have different placements. And they may not have been in a healthy placement, which cause their behaviors to be bad in school. So I do feel like a lot of times when changing school, they need to evaluate all of that. Because maybe they're in a better environment, so they deserve a second chance. You know, just... You force them out of going to your school because they had some problems in the past, but they also been through a lot of trauma. So you have to consider that as well when evaluating these children for school. It shouldn't be that hard. You know, they deserve a second chance. Okay, they had an episode. They were probably going through something at the time. The terms are different now. So as a child, they should just be stunned away from education because they had an episode. So I think it needs to definitely work on that for kids, especially that had those behaviors in the past. It should not be that hard for education.
I think you're 100% right, because it's the youth. We're really talking about times to experiment, times to learn. You're going to make mistakes. When else in your life are you supposed to make mistakes but when you're young? And if you don't give that grace, if we don't allow that, then we can't expect those kids to thrive one day.
I agree.
Right.
I think that actually reminds me. So I had someone call me. And they were on the phone. They had thought they hung up the phone, but they didn't hang up. So I was listening, and they were talking like to other folks. And they were like, "Yeah, that's Mr. Howard. He's got that demonic kid. Yeah, the one that put the hole in the wall." And I'm like, literally, like I'm listening. I never even said anything to them because you probably would think this kid is demonic. When he's having an episode, I've seen this kid. And he had multiple episodes, and they were never towards me or directed because of something we did, but what other folks would do. And this kid would be as strong as like 3 bulls. Like I literally was like, come on, no, don't do that. Get off them. Don't. And he was like literally like stabbing somebody with what was it, a pen or something? I'm like, stop. Put that down. They were like, get this little kid out of here before I call the police or whatever. And I remember having to actually call the police because he had some episodes because of some other things that happened. And I'm like, and this kid was like an angel with us. This kid was like the best kid. Like we loved him. He was young, like handsome, good looking. Like this kid probably could have been one of our kids. Like that's like the assumption that they got when they were around us. But when he had his episodes and he was upset, oh my God, it was terrible. I remember he telling me, he's like, Uncle Mel, I'm mad right now. But he could tell me and articulate, you hid this ice cream in this refrigerator and I didn't know about it. I said, no, that's not the case. If you want some ice cream, it's here. We ran out of room. We had to put it over here. Like, help yourself. Eat as much as you want to eat or whatever. And he was cool. But other people, nah, it won't know I'm mad at you. He would start ripping stuff. He would start throwing stuff. He'd start busting holes in the wall. Like this kid. And they was like, I can't believe, y'all took him. I was like, yeah, no, we didn't have any issues with him. And now, he's with his family and he's doing good. He's thriving. He's off all his different medications that he was on, like back in school, just everything.
Yeah.
I think that's the bittersweet part about it, because when fostering is different from adopting. When adopting, that child's going to be with you. With fostering, the main goal is to get them back with family. It's reunification.
Right.
So you get attached.
I was going to say, how hard is that for you?
They are going back with family, and they've been going from home to home to home.
Yeah.
So you be happy that they are reunited with family, and it's sad because you build a bond. It's like, okay, I got to let you go, I could be doing that. But I think that's the hardest part with fostering versus, adoption when you are, that child's with you for good,
Right.
So.
Well, when you're on when you're the last stop before reunification, for example, home to home, but the stability of your home that you provided got them reunified instead of
Going back.
moving to a different home, right? Because they didn't work out in your home. So your love, the way that you parent, right, gets them reunified with their home family. But that's also selfishly one reason why I have been asked on a few occasions to consider, my husband and I getting into foster role. I like to vacation a lot, which is going to be my next question for y'all. But I'm very selfish in that respect. And in my defense, I have raised my kids. My oldest is 29, my youngest 23. But selfishly, it's heartbreak. It's just, I feel, and I just think that it's the most unselfish thing that you are doing by being a foster parent, because you literally sign up for those little heartbreaks, but also growth. Some, the love that you get from the kids, I think is very cool. So thank you for being like foster parents, because I think that's, as a child of a product of child abuse, there are so many kids that just need love. And it doesn't matter if you are not their biological parents. They just need someone to love them. So thank you for doing that. But on a less serious note, dream vacation, where would you go? As a couple, no kids with you, as a couple. Like, you could go anywhere. Somebody waved a magic wand and was like, you could go anywhere. Money's not an object. Like, where?
For me, it would be Jamaica.
Okay. Jamaica.
Yeah.
I can participate in a lot of activities there.
Yep.
I just hear it's good.
They got some cafes. You can drink some tea in Jamaica.
I get the feeling Amore just wants to go anywhere there's gorgeous water.
Okay. Okay.
I just
Island.
Cancun,
Bermuda, Bahama.
And I'm like, maybe I need to go to Mexico.
I know. I'm like,
Life is long, babe. Hit them all.
I hit them all, right? Yes, hit them all. Where would y'all go with Thea? Where would you go if you were on a dream vacation? Not even couples, couples. If you want to take somebody, where would you go?
I do the whole Ireland, UK thing. I wanted to go see the cliffs of Dover. I want to see the rolling and some of the castles. It's I want to stay in a castle. I'd love to get my whole family. They got some in North Carolina. I was looking at it, you could rent a castle. You got 20 rooms. You get and just bring everyone in the extended family, all your friends, and just something like that. I don't know if we could do it in Ireland, but if I had the dream, I'd invite all my favorite people. Here's an airline ticket. We're going to meet out in Ireland. We're going to spend a week or two. We're going to go to these pubs and that'd be the dream.
And play Dungeons and Dragons.
Mel, you know me too well.
In the castle. I mean, what? If you're going to rent a castle, you better have a D&D game going in a castle.
And they better have a better Scooby-Doo bookcase store than I do, too.
How about you, Cody?
I know my wife would want to go to see all the mosaics and stuff in Istanbul. And
good man.
Oh, Turkey's on my list.
That would be really cool. I'd love to say that it would be some grand exotic place, but really, so there's this hot springs that me and my friends used to go to in our 20s. And we just go there Memorial Day, Labor Day, all of those different, 3-day weekends. And as much as I hate to say it, this is back before Google ruined every secret spot. And so there was only just us and the locals most of the time. And it wasn't regulated. It wasn't a place that you bought. It was just a pull off the side of the road. You had to know it was there. Some hippies, back in the 70s or whatnot, built these pools and put little beads and stuff in them. It was just great. It was relaxing. We would just go there and drink our faces off. It's right next to the river, so you go from the hot springs and you could jump in the river. And we'd camp right along the beach, along the river, and just sometimes be down there and never come up until it was done. It was just, I would go back there. But back to how it was in my 20s.
I'm just going to need to, if you've seen Leave the World Behind, because I'm just hyper-focused on that right now, that I'm going to need you to do a Google Maps with a bicycle route so that I know where that place is. So, because it sounds...
Hot Springs, the Kern off the Kern River in California, Remington Hot Springs.
Text me in today's technology.
There's another really good one way out, in the middle of Death Valley, but that's much more difficult to get to.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of difficult place to get to, that would be my dream vacation, which would be, I don't know. You're so thoughtful thinking of your wife. I totally did not. It says like dream couples vacation. I'm like, I'm definitely, yes, my husband can come with me, but it's like my dream vacation. I don't know. I have no idea if my husband wants to go to Antarctica, but this bitch does. And it's only because I know some people that are on one of these vacations right now. They just did Drake's Passage on I mean, like big money. They
Antarctica?
got money. They're literally in Antarctica right now.
Every single footprint on like the Antarctic ice shelf like kill like 100 baby seals.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm being super high.
They were in a boat. I don't know.
You probably have to pay me to go on a vacation to Antarctica. I do not do incredibly cold places.
Okay, I know. And it is incredibly cold.
There. Her husband was in the military.
Yeah, no. But the penguins, so listen, the videos that they are posting. I mean, orcas. Fuck them boats, man. I love orcas. And she got videos of orcas and penguins. And I just want to go. It's
I got those same videos from San Diego. It's super warm there.
I'm with Cody here.
Okay, valid.
Like, what you wearing? Like, that's dead. I'm sorry, it's too cold.
Like,
I know.
You have to wear like extra, insulated clothing, but you can't actually move too fast because if you sweat, you'll freeze and die.
No, okay, it's okay. We just came back from Amsterdam, and it was so cold there, and the sun didn't come up till like 8:45 in the morning, and then it set at like 4:30. So you only had like this little window of daylight, and no sun. Like, even though it was daylight, there was no sun. So it was overcast. So it was freezing. And it would take me, I would get back. Okay, so like I don't typically sleep with clothes on. So, but I slept with socks, long john pants, and a thermal. Apologizing to my husband. I am not mad at you. I just am I am so freaking cold right now. It would take me like 2 hours to defrost when we got back to our hotel room after, walking around, going to all the museums, but just it's so cold to the bone. So I was like, I don't know if I'll do a cold weather vacation again, but here we are talking, and I want to go to Antarctica. But that's probably the only cold weather vacation I will do. Everything else will be warm beach. We love Central America. Africa is my 50th birthday. I'm 47. So my 50th birthday, we are already planning a 3-week trip to Africa.
Oh, wow.
It will take me 3 years to save. So,
but they said the money is more over there, right? The currency is a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I mean the airfare. Airfare over there is like, it's pretty.
But you could take some money and be rich over there.
Right. So so that would be that is my dream. So I would love to talk a little bit about what's going on, what you have going on with Thriving Transmen of Color events-wise. So we'll wrap that up with you so that you can kind of share. And you were talking before we were recording about the cohort. Is that what you're doing through? You guys meet weekly? Or is that different?
Well, no, the cohort was something I just mentioned, and that was what started the organization. But what we do weekly is Thrive Marathon. Thrive Marathon is a BIPOC meetup, it's virtual. It's on Zoom. We meet up every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we do that. We even did it on like Christmas Eve. But we do that for community. We do that because a lot of trans men of color, that they don't have the support of their family members. They don't have any friends that they could really talk about their transness with. A lot of times with family members, it's more so of like the military was don't ask, don't tell policy. And I think that even when you let them know, you still have family members that dead name you. You still have so many different barriers, because when you're talking about not only your transness, you're also talking about the marginalized racism that you experience as well on top of that. So when you're thinking of not only your transness, but also thinking of your blackness on top of that, or being a minority in general, you know, it's heavy, you know what I'm saying?
The intersectionality. There's a lot of intersectionality. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we like to do some of that heavy lifting. So with Thrive Marathon, we do empowerment sessions. We do, you know, just talking about, you know, experiences. We'll do some education, some resource sharing, as well too. And it's just more so of just being able to have that community. A lot of these people that they come weekly, so I know them and they know me, or the other folks do, and they'll be like, you know, I haven't seen such and such, I hope they're okay. Like, do we need to follow up and check? And it's not like a requirement, because we make it so free forming. And of course I get to meet guys from all over the globe. We've had I actually have somebody joined in, and he actually lives in South Africa. I don't know how in South Africa you heard of TTMOC or you heard of Thriving Transmen of Color, but it's out there. And the fact that we're international or global, and we have over 1,900 members that's just in our Facebook group alone, over 7,000 followers on Instagram. We get so many views from the content that we create that not only is educational, but also entertaining. And we do that for, you know, with a purpose, with an intent. And we get a lot of hate messages and a lot of comments. I know that a lot of the other organizations, they don't talk about that, but we get it, and we know reason why. Not only do you see our blackness, do you see that we are of color first, but you also see our transness. And it was very important that when we created this organization, we created the organization with the intention of being outright, to be in front of it. If you ever take the moment to look at our logo, you'll see a pregnant trans man up there. You'll see a trans man with scars. You'll see a trans man who hasn't had top surgery. And it's just very, very important that we did that. You know what I'm saying? I wanted it to be inclusive of all of our bodies, of all of us, and for it not to have a filter, because sometimes it's almost like, okay, so we can palette this, so we can accept you. Right. But when you're directly in their face, this is it. See us. We're here. We're existing. And to make sure the focus was on us thriving, because maybe you might accept us making less more money than you, for not being offered a job, for not being treated as an equal. But when you see us, and some of us might be doing better than you. Yeah. It might piss you off a little bit more.
That's right.
Yeah. They might tolerate you before, but you being equals. And I think you hit on something really important too, because I think there's a lot of, there is a lot of that sentiment that there's that hate out there, and we don't want to get that hate. But the hate was there before. What wasn't there before is what you created, in a place for community and strength for people to fight against that hate. Yep. I think people miss that message a lot of times. The hate was already there. The hate's going to be there. Don't let that be a reason to not make the community and what we need to fight the hate.
And it just lets you know you're doing something right. I tell them all the time, you ain't popping unless you got no haters. So let them talk, let them hate. We've been having a problem being visible. So
they thrive.
Won't stop us.
The fear that they create, they thrive. I mean, they're fearful themselves. Okay, so let's just get this right. Like any sort of phobia, I mean, it all generates from fear, right? But then on top of that, they create an environment to try to make people fear, so that you won't be out there, right?
I read something the other day that actually kind of rung true with me, and that is that all violence is an expression of self-hate.
Yes.
Whether that's physical, emotional, all violence is an expression of self-hate. And that's also part of I talk a lot, and sometimes they tell me that I'm crazy, but I'm always big on loving people, and even the people that hate me, as hard as that is, because my hate back's not going to change them into loving people, but my loving them might.
Cody is a much bigger person than me
Yes.
because you can catch these hands anytime. I am. Listen, and it's true.
I'm right here with you, Melissa.
Like
I love too, but I'm right there with
that's
you.
right. And I just and certainly I understand the phrase so well, but just sometimes like the only way I feel I can express look at me balling up my fist. I express myself.
We always gotta fight, right?
Just that fight or flight. What I do is I joke, I'm like, listen, do not mess with me. I have way too much childhood trauma to take out on people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like don't and I joke about it because, I say it and I have caught people making jokes. And while I take my childhood trauma very seriously, I've gone through enough therapy to actually be able to speak openly about it. I don't think we talk about it enough. I don't think we talk about childhood trauma enough. And we need to start bringing up the fact that we have suffered from childhood trauma so that other people become vulnerable. And I think the thing that stuck with me about your weekly calls is the vulnerability that takes place on those calls.
Absolutely.
In that space.
It is. It's honestly that safe haven, that safe space. And we can talk about the trauma. We can talk about the experiences. We can talk amongst each other and know that it's judgment free. And that was really the intentionality behind it. Because like you, I do have a lot of childhood trauma, but I use my childhood trauma to let me be a voice, for me to inspire, for me to build on a community that's broken. And I saw it. I saw the competition in the community. I saw so much of folks wanting to be the best trans men. And honestly, I'm sorry, but the realness, the trans man realness and all these categories and all these different things, I look at every one of our members, we call them monarchs because they are kings or queens in our book. Yeah. And I look at them and I let them know, hey, you are worthy. You are valuable. You are special. You are so many different things. In fact, there's so many different members that are business owners. And I tell them, hey, let me know so I can support. Let me share your business. Let me put you on a platform. Let me X, Y, and Z. And I'm very big on building communities based on love, not on hate, because I've saw what hate does. I've seen what it can do. You know how many folks that hate me, not because I've done anything wrong, but because they're jealous of me. And I look at them and I don't understand why the need to feel like that. Cause here I am, I feel like I could be so many different things. I feel like there's so many flaws that I have as well too, but I aim to aspire. I aim to build folks up, and I have these folks and they're almost like trolls that walk around hating me, and I walk around loving them unconditionally and supporting them. Amore would tell me all the time, hey, you need to stop being a giver. You need to stop doing these things. And I say, hey, babe, I do this for a reason. I do this with intention. But Amore, everybody needs that backbone. Everybody needs that person to say, hey, no, wait a minute. And Amore will be that person that will check somebody. And she's actually done it before. We'll be at an event and they'll be talking about me behind my back, and she'll get them together politely and etiquetely
and respectfully.
And I'll not even know about it, but I'll find out later on what happened. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's never surprising. It's never shocking, but it's just like,
you have support.
Yeah, I have support. And then being that support for other folks is very important. And to be honest, there's so many different community members that are struggling with so many different things. So that's the reason why we do a lot of what we do. Like even for, we have a lot of trans families that weren't able to get their kids Christmas gifts. And it was very important that we made sure that we shipped out gifts for them, or we dropped off gifts to make sure, you know, you don't have to tell me that you need something for us to know it. I see you struggling. Right. And if presence is going to be one of your concerns, I'd rather you pay your electric bill. I'd rather you do this, or if you can't, reach out, because we'll support you in those needs as well too. But it's just making sure that this community, that we stand on something, that you know you have a place takes to turn. If you got to move, because everybody knows I drive this F-150 truck. So I drive this big truck. They calling me, hey, Mel, I got to move such and such. And I may not be the strongest man in the world, but I'm probably one of the more giving. I'm like, all right, well, when you need me.
Let's go. You got a couple bodies.
I don't know, Mel. If we're talking about strength, really, you are a very, very strong man. And that's what you've built, what you're building, the way that you show up, it shines through in everything y'all do. And it's one of the things that when I first got into the nonprofit space, when we started the Chaos Coalition, we're trying to find people who are doing the work. And you can watch, because what it says, my mom always said, look for the doers, look for the helpers, look for the people that are picking up the load and doing it. And that's one of the things that I love about Thriving Transmen of Color. It's something that we see eye to eye on. It's where we're able to connect on this idea that thriving, about being beautiful, being handsome, being your best self is what we want to focus on in the trans community. Because if we just always focus on the struggle, and that's real, it doesn't go away, then it gets so demoralizing. Our allies, they get exhausted. But it's so much more than that. Our lives are more than that. And that's it. And one thing I want to touch on also before I go off on very generic stuff is just how important it is, something that you taught, the support for trans masculine folks within trans and LGBTQ spaces. As a trans feminine person, I understand the politics of how we are put in the spotlight, sometimes against our own will, by other people and political actors. But as a consequence of that, there is not nearly as much support for our trans brothers. There's not enough out there. And the work that you're doing is so vital, especially when we talk about BIPOC trans folks. We're talking about BIPOC trans men specifically. And I know that if there's any way that we can support it, any way that our listeners can support it, we want to know how to. Please tell us how we can, anyone who's listening who may be a BIPOC trans person or a BIPOC trans masculine person, how would they get involved? How would they follow y'all? How would they, obviously social media and such, but what's the best way to reach out to Mel Howard?
Absolutely. So we do have a phone number. If you want to reach out to us, between the leadership of our volunteers, you call the 804-505-5013 and somebody will pick up the line, whether it's me or more. Shoot, you might hear from a volunteer, but we'll answer the phone. We've had folks call in dire needs and needing a place to go. We will find somewhere for them to go. We'll open up our hearts anyways. We're really big like that, but that's one way. They can always send us an email at thrivingtransmenofcolor@gmail.com. My mentor, he'll laugh at me because he's told me all the time, I need to get a professional email. And we're looking to it. The reason why we haven't done it is because, hey, Gmail is free.
There's companies that do Gmail.
I'll set you up $12 a year, Mel. Just call me. We'll set you up, bud.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah. But it is funny because I hear you on that, because you're like, if I have resources, those resources are going in more practical ways than me getting a paid for email account.
Right. Speaking of that, do you have like a website with a donation link?
Yes.
So people can go contribute,
Absolutely. So our email address, our website is thrivingtransmenofcolor.org. If you go onto the page, we do have ways for you to donate for us. We have a Give Butter account. Okay. We have PayPal. We have Cash App. So there's so many different ways. But once you go up there to the thrivingtransmenofcolor.org, at the very top, if you're on your cell phone, you see 3 bars on the side. And then if you look down, because it's not on the top icons, but it's a little bit lower, because our story, our services, getting involved, our mutual aid, our binder requests, our non-discrimination zone is prior to that. But there's a section that says donate to us. There's also a section that says upcoming events, and then after that there's a way that says contact us. But again, it's not really a priority to us about folks giving. What they can give and what we want to encourage is them getting involved. That's why you'll see it's the third option, getting involved, because we want the community to be very much a part of it. You don't have to be a trans man of color to be a volunteer. You could be brown, purple, turquoise, yellow, whatever color. If you prioritize this community, we love to use your services. I have my beautiful wife next to me. She's not a trans woman of color. She's on our executive. She's one of our on our executive leadership board. She does an amazing job. She actually hosts a lot of stuff, but she needs her own talk show anyway.
But you were killing at the mentor program that you were you were doing amazing that night, babe. Oh my gosh.
Nice.
So definitely. And then, like you said, we have the website, Thriving Transmen of Color is the email. Also, I have an email, amoreharrell.ttmoc@gmail. So, a lot of our emails have the .ttmoc. So, direct email for him, mailhoward.ttmoc@gmail. So, all of that's connected. So,
great.
you guys can reach out for anything like that.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, it has been great having you guys here.
And are we going to see you all at the trans family dinner this next coming month?
Yes.
I mean,
We got it on the 21st now. We're doing it on the third Sundays of every month for all of
January
2024.
21st?
January 21st.
I'm actually going to be able to make this one.
Whoa.
I
And
know.
also, I do have my own business, Lash and Loaded Boutique. So if anyone needs some, I have lashes and wig trainers right now. We
Okay.
are in the process of getting more items for the brand.
I need some help.
How do they get that? How do you get
Yeah,
that?
how do we get that?
LashedandLoadedBoutique.net is the
Lashed
website.
and loaded.
And Lash is
LashedandLoadedBoutique.net.
LASHED and spelled out loadedboutique.net.
Got it.
And
Y'all
Facebook
check it
as
out.
Well. So we just
Love it.
trying to make some moves out here.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, and I always look forward to seeing y'all at the dinner.
We appreciate
we
y'all
have-
having us and honored to be able to come and speak on behalf of Thriving Transmen of Color and all the good work that you guys are doing as well.
Well, I mean, I know. I think I've said it to Mel before. You know, the beauty of this, and Mel was just touching on it. You know, getting people involved is even more important than any resources or funds, because people are the real resources.
Absolutely.
And turning those, you know, our own little streams into rivers and meeting up, you know, and just getting bigger and being able to do more and for each other. Because it is, the community is so important. You know, I'm so grateful just for the people that I've had in my life that put me in a place where I could be more of who I needed to be for my child. But just, you know, the experiences and all of the people out there working to get, just how amazing it is. The beautiful things I've got to see since putting more of my time in and becoming more involved. I mean, it's not just an investment on my part. It is very rewarding across the board. I mean, one of those being able to meet you guys. I mean, and hear your story, talk about you with your kids, to really be able to see that in real life and how magical that is. I mean, that's an amazing, it's an expanding experience as a person. I think people, you know, don't value those experiences enough, how they expand you and grow you and the way you get to view the world. It's just amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, we also have, like I know I spoke about Thrive Marathon, which is exclusively for us, and it was very intentional why we made that space. But when we do have events, we do open the events up for everyone, because not only do we want you to see us thrive, but also be a part of it. And then a lot of the things that we will do, whether it's LGBTQIA and allies, you know, inclusive, or whether it's just these events, then it might be more just for us, more secluded. But we do that with intentionality, but we're also just very supportive. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to talk against trans women and be a trans man organization. I've never done that. In fact, and when they bring those conversations up to me, I shut them down instantly, because it's not about whose struggle is worse. It's about being in a community where we can build each other up. They may say, oh, Thriving Transmen of Color, you created this organization, as if trans women of color don't matter. But yes, no, they do. And I do share trans women of color resources, and I do promote them. And a lot of work that my wife does, I love her more, and everything that she does do, I support her in that. But not only that, I support my sisters in the work that they're doing. One of my biggest mentor, Darnisha Duncan Boyd, she runs Take a Resource Center in Alabama. She reached out to me. She said, hey, Mel, can you donate to one of the angels in the area who needed a Christmas gift? I said, absolutely, Miss Duncan Boyd. I will gladly do this, because I know what it's like to struggle. I remember my first apartment. It was me and two other trans women. We lived in that 1-bedroom apartment together. I did it. I opened my doors because they needed a place to go. I opened my doors because I knew they needed support and love. And I would gladly do that for anybody that was in need. And so that's the reason why when we do our mutual aid, or if we do our bonding request, we don't look and see what color they are. are. If you're a trans masculine or a trans man who needs a binder and you meet the qualifications, we'll gladly make sure you have a binder available for you. And it's very intentional about that. You know what I'm saying? Or just like our mutual aid request. It's very intentional. If you need clothes or food or something like that, we're doing that because we want to see you succeed. And we know what it's like to just survive, but we know what it's like to get to that point of thriving. It was very important for me, like the creating of this. I did this when I was working a lot of hours. I was working at a financial institute, secondary lending place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have lots in common off the recording.
So I was working there. I was working a whole lot of overtime. I'm talking me, Amore was working at another location that they owned as well too. And I'm busting out all these hours. I remember having my hysterectomy and the doctor wanted me out for 2 weeks. I took a week off because I wanted to get back to work for this company that later, when the manager changed to this transphobic lady, I no longer had a job there anymore. But I took that money that I was making and I set aside for the organization because I knew we needed it. And I knew the power that it held, and I knew the importance of it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things what I'll see us do as an organization, I'll see a lot of people imitate or duplicate or copy or steal from it. But hey, you know, you can't pull it off as best as we could, but we know that it must be us doing something right. If you got to imitate, duplicate, or want to try to
it's the best, but they
it.
say it's the best form of flattery.
Yes.
So,
And more trans
know,
services always makes me exactly. You're a change maker.
You're creating
You're a
change.
trendsetter.
Trendsetter, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And there really, I do believe that it's such a valuable space. My oldest, I have a 29-year-old, and they are trans, non-binary. Mask just started about a year ago, testosterone, just wanting to get a more mask appearance. Very queer, married, husband, bisexual, beautiful marriage, don't want children. Don't want to foster any kids either.
It takes a special soul.
It does take a special soul. And I love that. And I could care less if my kids have kids. That's their choice. It's not my kids' responsibility to make me a grandparent. Right. So their choices are their choices. I'll be supportive. We do have one already that did have a child. We have a 2-month-old grandson. So, and we, you know, I make my little mark here and there. You know, we asked about when they were doing names. They really made me proud because they did a gender neutral name. And there's just these, you know, these little things that we're seeing with our adult kids that are just changing this gender binary that we live in. I have a pin on my bag that I, you know, like my little, it's not a purse, it's a bag, little bag I carry. And it says beyond gender.
Okay.
Because we have to get beyond gender.
Yes.
We have to stop looking at the world through this narrow binary.
Well, and just start treating people as
They
who they
want to
are.
be treated, and
Yes.
how they want to be treated,
This
not
is who
treat
this person
me.
is according to my experiences
That's right.
with them. And as I gain experience with them and they with me, we will exchange the different ways we want to be treated and treat each other individually. And that's really it, just seeing the person as an individual, not
right.
going into every interaction with some overall view of this is how I interact with a man, or this is how I interact with a black man or a woman, or any of that, but just this is this person. And they're going to tell me how to interact with them right now as I interact with them. And we're going to do that personally, our own personal relationship just between you and me, and have that with everybody. When we get to that, that's when people really get to be themselves. Right. And that's a big part of it. You know, that's a big part of the energy that I know Mel brings. It's something I attach very closely to. And for people like me and Mel that do that, we do need to have people in our lives that stand up for us, because everything we do is about who we are. Right. Doesn't matter who you are, what you did to me. My action is going to be completely about who I decide to be.
Exactly.
And Cody, one of the best things that I love about you is the fact that you don't force norms on your kids, right? I've met you. I met your kids. Cody's one of those parents that is supportive, right? And they're not trying to live out your dreams through your kids. And a lot of parents are trying to do that. That's why the whole transness is so crazy. And you mentioned bags. We actually have some unisex bags. They're cross bags.
It's a crossbody bag that I
Crossbody bag. Yes. And they're unisex. It says protect trans kids on them. We're selling them for a fundraiser for $30.
Okay.
But it's for a good reason, right? And we're doing this because now it's so shunned upon for you to be trans. Imagine to be a trans kid as if, you know, you couldn't be a lesbian kid or you couldn't be a bisexual kid or whatever the case may be. And we did it for a reason. Not only is it, you know, they're unisex, of course, so men can wear them, women can wear them, but we did it with the intentionality. So it's always a message behind everything that you do. If you ever notice anything that we do, it's really, really, really about that. And Cody, which reminded me when you brought up what you were talking about, is our next event is going to be on February the 21st. And it starts at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be at MASS, Minority Aid Support Services. It's going to be at 1401 Tidewater Drive, Unit 10, Norfolk, Virginia, 23504. And this session is called What Does It Mean to Be You?
Oh, wow. Love that. And easy to remember because the Trans Family Dinner is January 21st. And then the TTMOC event is February 21st. So listeners.
21st are awesome this whole year.
That's right. 21st.
Well, that brings us to the youth program as well. We do have a youth program that's starting in February.
Okay.
For youth ages 12 to 16, which kind of embodies some of those same topics. What does it mean to be you is one of the sessions included in that program.
Really
and the youth program is Thriving to Be a Better Version of Yourself. So that kicks off in February. So any youth struggling may want to have support. Those groups will be there for the youth to be able to have different, you know, individuals like themselves be able to share stories, experiences, and resources. And we'll also have a group.
Yes. Sorry, in person.
Yeah, in person. And also a group for the parents as well of LGBT youth for the ages 12 to 19 that may be struggling on how to deal with acceptance. So those two support groups will be starting, and that program will be starting in February. So that's a good thing for our youth and parents.
Absolutely.
Y'all are amazing. This is such good work.
That's really, it's really
that's
good
huge, especially, I mean, I know being a parent and just my experience with myself and my kids, it's not super easy to just go out there and connect with everybody.
I was going to actually say, you know, there's almost like milestones, like in parenting with regard to those of us that are parents of trans kids, in the sense of, you know, parents have to have acceptance with their children. Okay. And then how do we deal in our social circles?
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, that was one of the things when Alex married Kevin. I can't tell you how many of my friends, having known Alex since teenage years and identified as a lesbian, because 15 years ago, I've talked about this before, the language, right, wasn't quite there. Like that was the kind of, it was lesbian, like, right? And then through college, that's when they, on their journey and talked to me through it as they were comfortable talking through it with me, right? And then my friends all being like, wait, what do you mean, Alex? I'm really confused. Alex married a man, right? And nobody's taught me how to talk to my friends about, you know, these experiences we have, right?
Exactly. I think we get the same thing. For me, talking to my mother, and my mother knowing my wife's tea, and they're like, wait, or whatever. And I was just like, well, this is something completely different. And I think that's the reason why, like, with our support group that we have and these sessions that we're having, we open it up to LGBTQ youth, because this is the whole thing is when I was a child, I didn't come out as a trans man. I came out as a lesbian.
Right.
But those were the words that folks knew, and they knew how to identify it. And then it wasn't until I got the education, the knowledge behind it, where I could articulate who I was and to identify. And because my sexuality is, I'm pansexual. So I have this beautiful woman who is my wife, who is, you know, a trans woman. But how many men have I had sex with? How many cisgender women have I dated? How many, you know what I'm saying, bisexual folks have I encountered, you know, over the years? And then just understanding and that accepting that, hey, my sexuality and my gender identity are two complete different things. And I got on this road, on this journey, and that's how I became who I became. And if it wasn't for that, you know, we had one of the kids that came out to the session and they said, well, you know, I'm a non-binary lesbian. I don't want to transition. I just want top surgery. And be honest with you, there has been some times when I was non-binary for a period of life before I identify as a trans man. So I know about that. They're actually in the age where I was considering myself non-binary, but you know, I didn't judge him for it. You know, I was like, hey, well, Dr. Guy Jones, they do top surgeries in Norfolk, Virginia. That's in this area. If you want to go see him, you know what I'm saying? He'll gladly take care of you. He was taking care of a few guys that I know. You know, I'm not going to judge you for anything. I think that folks think that, oh, if this person isn't doing what I'm doing, that there's an issue with it. There's just like the whole idea of trans men getting pregnant and, oh, this is shunned upon. This, you can't do this. You can't do that. I'm telling you, I'm a trans man of color. And if you tell me that a trans man is a woman because he's having a baby, I think that you might see the upset male, and you can't get male upset for a lot of things, but talking crazy like that or misgendering that person in front of me, you might see me almost catch a case. And I think Amore will probably stop me from catching the case, but I will be right there, probably on the edge. So, I mean, because it's very important for my brothers out there who want to have kids to have those kids, and for me not to judge them. You know, I had my hysterectomy because I was bleeding for 3 months straight. So I had to, but had I didn't, you know, and I've cried and, you know, talked to people about this because Amore really wanted a kid, and I could have possibly been the one that could have been able to fulfill that dream for her, but I couldn't do it in that form. So it was a very emotional time for me, but I wanted to make sure that everybody had a choice. And the fact, the laws that are going on right now and the changes, they want to oppress that or whatever, or folks being able to have a choice if they didn't want to have a kid. Because if a trans man got raped and they were to get pregnant, I think they deserve the right to abort that baby if they didn't want to carry it as well. Or if they just didn't want to have that kid. I think that everybody should have a choice.
That's autonomy.
Everybody deserves the right
human
to autonomy.
autonomy.
Everybody deserves the right to be themselves and have autonomy over themselves.
That is a whole. That is.
Whatever that looks
I know.
Whatever that looks like.
No, we need to have you all back. We'll have a whole episode on autonomy.
We
I know.
can keep on talking. And you can hang out and go over the news with us too.
We do actually have audience members observing. Yes, so we will. So Nick, like, we need to actually have them on. So we do have some audience members. Yeah, that is a whole nother episode because my oldest Alex went through, I would say, 18 months of back and forth to have bottom surgery and you know, I flew, they live in Wisconsin, so like I flew up to just help and, you know, get them. That was April of last year, just to help through surgery, you know, and just make sure everything, recovery was okay and all that. And the difficulty to get now they have a great gender affirming care physician that's their primary, which has been really amazing. Who they're just very fortunate because their doctor moved from Boston. I guess Boston has one of the best and relocated to Wisconsin. So they're very, very fortunate to be able to have that care. But what people don't understand is 20 years ago, my oldest was in a classroom at a private school in Suffolk with a transgender child. Guess who cared? Nobody. The kids didn't care and the parents didn't care. This was 20 years ago. So the fact that we're here and my kids aren't even in school, but I'm with Cody battling for his kids and his family and other families, other trans kids, it does really blow my mind. But yes, so it was lovely having y'all here. We're gonna, if you want to stick around, we're gonna do a little bit of news, kind of catch up a little bit on some news stories here.
Before we transition to the news, can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I really think that if I had to summarize what we were talking about tonight is the importance of the trans family, how we lose people, how we stick together, and how trans families do not always look like that picturesque picture of what a family is supposed to be, and that chosen families. Those are just as valid. The families we build as people are valid. And I just want to make sure that we are focusing on this, because it's the message that I want to send most above everything else. Aside from seeing trans people thrive, it's our families, and that our families sometimes has cis folks in it, sometimes has queer other folks in it. It's bigger than just us.
That's the ultimate goal is community.
Right. I think the trans family is
not
the
to have
ideal
a bunch of different communities,
what it
but
should
to
look
be
like.
one big community.
One big community.
One band, one sound.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because if it wasn't for racism and it wasn't for homophobia and transphobia, that there wouldn't be a white community and a black community and there would be a community.
Right.
And that's the ultimate goal.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really big. So with us doing our youth program that we have the parent side, which is actually being facilitated by Jessica Gurley. Jessica Gurley runs 757 Trans Families. We had Thea as one of our guest speakers when we first launched it, who did an amazing job. Thea, we love you dearly. Thank you so much for everything that you do. But Thea is actually the one who literally was talking to me, and she inspired me and said, we're going to make this happen, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and actually believed it. Yeah. They actually brought me a relationship back together with me and my brother, who I hadn't talked to for some time, and actually got me in the same room with someone who I hadn't talked to in a really long time, and helped me have a conversation with them, So Thea does some really powerful things. She really...
Thea is a rock star.
Yeah, she is worthy of praise for sure. All day, every day.
Big reason why we're all here.
Listen.
It's the trans family, y'all.
If not for Thea at this point, I think Cody and I could probably agree. Sorry, I'm trying to get my hair on my face. That Cody and I would agree. Like Thea and Ty, our amazing producer over there in the background.
They do all of the things that I'm terrible
they
at.
Do,
like, if this was me, it'd be like you and me trying to record this like on my phone. Hey, make sure we turn the mic towards it.
Cody and I talked about this a couple months ago, and we were just like, yeah, cool. Yeah, we should do something. And then, of course, thankfully, Thea came through and just
stop
literally
y'all too much.
Yeah,
too much.
I know. No, so yes, it's great. Okay, so let's talk about some news. As many of us in this room know, states are really taking swipes at gender affirming care. I mean, we've got Texas going after records, hospital records, so that they can identify every trans youth and adult, from what I'm understanding, that's been treated at the universities. They're taking advantage of the state funding that goes to these universities to try to, essentially circumvent HIPAA laws and get information on patients so that they can then villainize or do whatever. If Trump gets back in office, I guess, he would like to start some, concentration camps for homeless, and who else is going to, it's really, this is where we are. But the Biden administration has been appealing a ruling in Florida to overturned because of Medicare, right? Mm-hmm. So Biden administration this week this was December 10th actually, urged an appeals court to uphold a ruling that Florida violated federal law by blocking Medicaid coverage for transgender people seeking hormone therapy and puberty blockers. Lawyers from the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services filed a brief at the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals saying decisions by the state agency for healthcare administration and lawmakers to prevent coverage for the treatments violate a federal Medicaid law and Affordable Care Act. I think this is going to be really, really important, because this is going to set the tone for how all the other states proceed. Just today, it was kind of a breaking news thing just a few hours ago. Idaho. Yeah. Thank you.
Idaho.
One of the I states, Iowa, Idaho, corn-fed white folks out there. I just knew
Idaho's potato-fed white folks.
Oh, yeah. Corn too, but yes, potatoes. Yeah. I'm from Ohio. Talk about corn-fed white people. And they all look the same in Ohio too to me. I don't know. Anyways, so in Idaho, the state supreme, or is it their state?
I think it was Idaho. It's just, I don't think it was the Supreme Court, but federal judge in Idaho has put a stop on their gender affirming care ban for minors, pending his ruling. And from what I understand, reading through it, some of the statements, it sounds like they really believe that it's actually going to stop, that they are going to rule in favor of the people that are suing to have this care ban overturned.
I think it's interesting. He says people are saying it's crucial. A parent's right to seek medical care is deeply rooted in this nation's history and traditions. And that's, you're saying to parents, you cannot help your child when we have data that says not helping our not having gender affirming care for our youth is very harmful and detrimental to our children. And so, if you are a parent that wants to get your child, and this goes to puberty blockers too, like who's to say that some religious, freak person out there that's just like, absolutely, I will not abide, right? For puberty blockers on a child who medically is not a trans child, but needs puberty blockers for a medical reason.
Well, I was reading an article yesterday, day before yesterday, about precocious puberty. Actually, precocious puberty, especially in the Black community. About how it's really affecting children in that community. And you have children going into puberty as young as 5 years old. In kindergarten, they're entering puberty. But what's interesting about that is when you're reading this article and you're having this conversation about precocious puberty, in that conversation, puberty blockers are completely safe medical treatment.
Medically necessary.
Medically necessary, completely safe medical treatment. When you have that same conversation in regards to the treatment of trans children, all of a sudden puberty blockers are sterilizers that will ruin their lives forever. And it's just an entirely different conversation about the exact same.
What's the difference there? What could the difference be? I cannot.
Right. There's literally no difference.
It reminds me of when I was a youth and I was still identifying as a little boy. My mother was insisted upon this whole thing, and I was overweight, and I had a very developed chest at that time. She was like, you could have surgery, it's totally fine, we'll get this corrected. But when I was like, well, no, I want to have tops, that was a no-go. So to me, like, the gender affirmation, the willingness to is very one-directional. I'd also like to say
and that goes with, for all this, that's a lot of things people don't really realize when, there's a lot of people, uninformed people, that come into this conversation and want to have a conversation about it. And I'll hear that sometimes from people about, they can't do this until they're 18. They can't do this until they're 18. They can't do this until they're 18. No, they can do all of those with parental consent before they're 18, just like any medical procedure. They can get plastic surgery. It can even just be aesthetic if that's what the parent signs off of. They can get tattoos. They can completely alter their body and do all of those things with parental consent legally in our country. The only plastic surgery that's under attack at all or being threatened to take away from anybody is gender affirming surgeries. Everybody else can still get those exact same surgeries just because they want to change their body.
Right.
So also what they're not talking about, what kind of you guys are mentioning, is the fact that a lot of these laws would stop, estrogen from being available. What about the women who have cancer and need estrogen?
What about as I get a little bit older and maybe I need some testosterone, or my doctor says I should take testosterone?
Correct.
What about that? Is that not gender affirming care for me?
That 100%, because, and also what they fail to realize is that when I go to my doctor, I'm a cancer survivor, right? I was 40, and I had to have a total hysterectomy. So no ovaries, nothing. So which put me immediately into menopause at 40. And sex drive was an issue. And sex drive is it's an issue for me. Like it's a very important, like my husband and I's relationship, like our intimacy is very important to me. And it's for me, I need, like, that is very important to my identity within my relationship with my husband. And I love sex. So like when I don't have a natural desire for it anymore, the way I did before all of this, because I had cancer, I want to be able to do that. Well, guess what? Guess what they give me? Testosterone.
Okay.
So they add testosterone to my estrogen that I'm taking to supplement what I'm missing from lacking my ovaries. Now, I had high testosterone before because I have PCOS. So the addition of testosterone for me, I was like, if I am very be feeling like I'm gonna rip every person's face off, we need to probably dial the testosterone a little bit back, because if I'm saying that about myself, it must be really, I can't imagine what people are saying about me right now. You know what I mean? But even to be able to get that for sex. I mean, there are people that would look at me and be like, there are probably doctors that would look at me and say, I don't need to prescribe you that. Like, your sex drive isn't really, it doesn't matter.
That's not medically necessary.
Thank
That's something
you.
that the trans folk hear all the time. It's not medically
That's
necessary.
sometimes the doctors being uneducated in that.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
But I got one better for you. I bet you if my 75-year-old cis father went in and said, oh, I've got these symptoms of low T, doc, could you do something? Could you give me a gel? Can you give me something? I need to take something. He'd get it, and it would never even be a conversation about gender affirming care, any sort of, if I went in there as a trans woman and asked for estrogen, I don't give that care. I can't do that.
Right.
And that to me is malpractice in a lot of different ways, but we allow that systemic malpractice to be perpetrated because I should be able to, and I don't have a prescription, or my doctor's out of town or something, go to the emergency care place and get a prescription for it because it's something that is medically necessary for me. But that, I digress. The whole
And
conversation on it's skewed.
If you're cisgendered and you have money,
There you go.
you can go to these wellness places. You know what I'm saying? And you can pay for your testosterone, and you can pay for your estrogen. You can pay for bio whatever pellets, you know what I mean? And all of these things, right? And I'm not, I mean, it's all valid. But what I'm saying though is that, again, a barrier here, okay, is money, right? Because even if you can't get the care through medicine, if you have money,
Well, and
that's
that's
one
one of
right?
the
But that's a problem.
Yeah, that's the
that's
push
a huge
for
problem.
That's the push with so many of these laws to remove gender affirming care from insurance coverage.
That's right. Well, that whole thing was over Medicaid. Yeah.
Well, and just not even just Medicaid, but just passing laws in states that make it to where insurance doesn't have to cover this care.
Insurance doesn't have to cover
They
the care.
introduced that here in Virginia. What was it last year? It passed, thankfully.
Yeah.
Most doctors won't accept it, and it's because they want the cash. They don't want. They don't want to go through the insurance claim and having to get. You know, some people who have insurance that need that gender affirming care.
Absolutely.
And it's just an extra barrier that really, you know, a lot of people don't even understand the impact of an extra barrier like that, you know, because they're not part of a community or interact with the community that has had in so many cases, the whole structural support foundation of their life removed from them.
Right.
And this makes me think of Heather, our events director. She moved here from Florida with her 19-year-old trans daughter. And these laws, they create this sort of disincentive where, like, their doctor stopped providing general care. This is a general practitioner who provided trans care as a part of, like, a suite of whole services, holistic services, but stopped providing trans care because they were worried about the liability, the risk, the state coming after them because the board of pharmacies and other things were asking questions due to the state intervention. So it was a preemptive thing where they were not able to get healthcare. So the access and the gatekeep, sometimes it's not just cost. Don't get me wrong. Class always plays. You've got money, you can do what you need to do. But at the end of the day, it's also this discrimination based upon people being atypical, queer, or more very specifically trans.
Well,
But that's how they use money to do that too. Like that's
you're seeing that pressure on doctors. Matter of fact, it's a major strategy right now.
It is.
That pressure on doctors, whether it's for gender affirming care or for abortion. I mean, that was a big one in Texas recently. You know, where you had that woman who had the terrible
Yeah, absolutely.
everything.
The 20-week, the
and
Trichrome 18 or something.
the judge ruled against her. She had to go out of state. But what I found very, very interesting about that ruling, when you read it, is what the judge ruled was that it was up to the doctor. It was entirely within the doctor's decision making to decide whether or not that was a life-threatening pregnancy. Now, the problem with that is you have there in court then placed all of the liability and all of the decision-making on the doctor.
And then it becomes criminal.
And in the state of Texas, that doctor, so if that doctor does give somebody an abortion, they can be charged to up to life. It's like 99 years.
That's
it's a
right.
felony. It's not like they just lose their license or they just get fined. They can lose their life to prison for it.
The criminalization.
And so in almost any situation, that doctor is going to default to no abortion because if I don't get that just right, it can cost me my life.
Right.
They did the same thing with abortion. They put all these weird things. Okay, you have to have a hospital. You have to have ambulatory. Like they close clinics that way systemically. This is a strategy well tried and true. So it's so frustrating to watch that. But I'm sorry, Mel.
What I was going to say is the connection to the abortion clinics are also the clinics that do hormones a lot of the area, but nobody else wanted to tackle it. When you think about gender affirming care, look at the organizations that are doing it. If they're not organizations that do abortions, they're organizations that might prioritize HIV.
That's right.
So, but keep that in mind too. Why isn't that these doctors aren't getting educated in gender affirming care? You have all this education, all this knowledge, but you mean to tell me it's so hard to check levels to see whether these levels are good or to see if this care that a trans person needs is different than the cisgender care? And honestly, I don't think it is, but you'll find it out here in Hampton Roads, especially the struggles where it is to get gender affirming care from a regular doctor. We used to have this one doctor that was out here. He retired, but this was a regular primary care doctor who, guess what he did? Gender affirming care on top of it. And it wasn't rocket science. And this was a regular doctor, but guess what? He actually felt the need to treat trans people like real people. Mind blowing.
And the conversations I've had with doctors, MDs, where they would say, "Oh, I don't do that." And the way that they feel comfortable doing that because of the larger thing is very disconcerting. But then I also, while we're talking on the subject, I want to put some good words on someone's name, because I was this morning over in Portsmouth. I was meeting at ETSI Clinic with Naona Byers, and we talk about clinics and we talk about the needs, the actual doctors. I don't want to spoil any of her news, so I apologize now if that's, but she is opening the clinic over there in Portsmouth. I've stood in the actual space. She's bringing a doctor down from New York who was trained to actually increase the capacity and do that sort of work. And this is, again, time and time again, Black trans women leading in these spaces.
That's right. And
absolutely killing it. And I want to make sure that as a community that we are doing everything we can to recognize and elevate the work she's doing, because there's ambitious things that we want to do at the Kayla's Coalition when it comes to shoring up the supply line for medications. We have our HRTC storehouse. But in terms of the work that needs to be done today, it is being done, and we need to all show up for it and make sure that we're talking about it, and also making sure that our SIBs have access to it. Because I could tell you right now, there's so many folks in Virginia Beach who, even if we talk at 6 months because it's just opening the clinic, they wouldn't even know.
Right.
They'd be going to Planned Parenthood. How many folks do I know that can't get in here locally? They're up going up to Washington, D.C., up into Arlington, all sorts of different things, traveling miles away. And we can do better.
Right.
We need to do better.
The whole thing about it is, why do we need a clinic? Why can't we just go to a regular doctor's office and be seen? And that's my priority about it.
That is 100% right.
Absolutely.
It should just be
if
going
a primary
to your
care
PCP.
physician can give it to me, then a primary care physician should be able to give
My
it to the trans
PCP can
person.
prescribe, my husband Viagra if he wants it. Like, there's and there, like when a doctor says, well, I don't do that. Well, actually, there's a lot of gender affirming care that PCPs do every single day. They just don't frame it that way in their mind because we live in a heteronormative world, right? And so, and then the ones that do are you have to find out through word of mouth. And so, but gender affirming care is obviously a hot topic when we're talking about trans rights. So then the next one in the news has to be around sports, which I have such a peeve with the fact that we're only ever talking about women's sports because nobody ever talks about trans men in sports, right? And participating in sports. It's this constant attack, and in the vein of protecting women's sports. I listen and participate in TikTok lives, as you know, Cody and I are TikTok buddies, and we I torture myself sometimes, and I sit in and listen, and I'm the best shutdown I heard of somebody talking about sports when, it's like, oh, we want to protect, women's sports. Name five women athletes. It's freaking crickets. Bet you can name 5 male athletes like that. I bet everybody in this room could, right?
Yes.
But you don't care about women's sports. You just care about controlling this, right?
Well,
Right.
and it's a disconnect.
It is a disconnect.
It is a disconnect too, because you remember a while back I had that conversation with Karen Greenhall.
Yes.
Karen Greenhall,
She's a delegate. She's a Virginia State delegate
Not
for
anymore.
listeners.
She lost.
Oh, well, she lost.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
that's right. She lost her race. Yes,
She
thankfully.
lost her race.
But at this time, Cody, this is one of our
she's-
legislators you're talking to.
But at the time she was.
She was
At the
a
time she was.
legislator.
And
Well,
not
she
one.
technically still is for 4 more days.
Yeah, but not one. I mean, her big legislation was banning trans athletes from participating in sports.
Yep.
That's her
Banning
thing.
trans athletes.
And I met with her at her office, and I'm a big believer in, I don't attack. I told her my experience, my story, my life experiences, my experiences with my child, she's very strong about this trans athlete ban, and one of her statements to me was, because I brought up to her, I was like, look, the examples that so many people are upset about. We have, some runners in Connecticut from 5 years ago. We have one girl that hit in the face with a volleyball.
I heard 23. The number was 23.
So they're still upset that Leah Thomas came in fifth.
23
But-
trans athletes have taken titles.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's just titles in school sports.
School sports.
Name one that's got a athletic scholarship that's taken
Right.
that away from somebody.
Right.
Name one that's taken away some professional athletes.
Olympic gold medal.
People want to talk about, you're taking opportunity. Well, show me the opportunity that's getting taken,
Well,
please.
we do.
Yes.
We do. 'Cause we do have a trans man boxer.
Man boxer.
There we go.
We have
Yeah.
a trans
Yes.
man weightlifter.
His
Right, the
his
power
name
lifter?
right now is Patrico Manuel. Hopefully I said that right. But he's undefeated. Trans man boxer going against cisgendered men. He's of color.
Right.
Black man doing his thing.
Yeah.
He's actually out there. He's winning. So
Winning. And
he's
nobody's
thriving.
saying
Yes.
anything.
No, we
Nobody's-
are. We're
Well,
talking
you
You
are.
are.
But
You just made me a fan.
Right, yeah, you
I'm-
just
I'm-
made me a
I
fan.
want to watch
Yes.
the next
Yes,
match.
there's also a power lifter. I do not know his name. But when we were talking about go ahead.
Oh, but the one thing that she was saying, because I brought up the one girl that had gotten hurt, and she,
Yeah.
she was like, well, one girl getting hurt is just too much. And it's such a disconnect in the conversation, because what I'm talking about is one trans LGBTQ child ending up homeless is way too much. One ending up murdered is way too much. One ending up taking their own life is way too much. We're not talking about ice pack here. You're talking about one person needing an ice pack is way too much. I'm talking about people's lives. It's just a very different conversation when we're talking about the impact that we're having on these people in these spaces. But that's the big disconnect.
They have a huge disconnect.
All of this is connected to, if one person loses a scholarship, if one person gets hurt, we're talking about people that are losing their lives.
Well, right. And this news article that we have is Florida fines a high school for allowing transgender student to play girls volleyball. So Florida State Athletic Board. So in Virginia, we have it's VHSL, Virginia High School Sports League, VHSSL or whatever. Theirs is Florida State Athletic Board. Find a high school and put it on probation Tuesday after a transgender student played on the girls' volleyball team, a violation of a controversial law enacted by Governor Ron DeSantis and the legislature.
Is this the same high school that they had the principal? Or
yes. Monarch High,
same, same high school.
Same
this
high
is a continuation of them continuing to punish this whole school.
Right, and now
they've letting this girl play volleyball.
And now they've gone for monetary. Right. So now the Florida High School Athletic Association fined Monarch High $16,500 and ordered the principal and athletic director to attend rules seminars and placed the suburban Fort Lauderdale school on probation for 11 months, meaning further violations could lead to increased punishments. The association also barred the girl from participating in boys' sports for 11 months. The 2021 law, which supporters named the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, bars transgender girls and women from playing on public school teams intended for student athletes identified as girls at birth. The 10th grader who played in 33 matches over the last 2 seasons was removed from the team last month after the Broward County School District was notified by an anonymous tipster.
I bet.
Freaking traitors about her participation. Her removal led hundreds of Monarch students to walk out of class 2 weeks ago and protest. Woo woo. Good job, kids. The Associated Press is not naming the student to protect her privacy. Thanks to the leadership of Governor Ron DeSantis, Florida passed legislation to protect girls' sports. Oh, I didn't get my Paula Deen voice out because I... Sorry, I get my Paula Deen voice when I start reading some of these racist, homophobic, transphobic people. Thanks to the leadership of Governor Ron DeSantis, Florida passed legislation to protect girls' sports, and we will not tolerate any school that violates this law, Education Commissioner Manny Diaz said in a statement. We applaud the swift action taken by the Florida High School Athletic Association to ensure there are serious consequences for this illegal behavior. You let a child play a sport that they've been playing in high school. And this is where you're spending your energy.
Right.
The girl's mother, Jessica Norton, the girl's mother and a Monarch information technician. The girl's mother apparently works for the school. Went public last week. That's even worse. She reissued a statement Tuesday calling the outing of her daughter a direct attempt to endanger the girl. Because that's another thing that we are not talking about, right? Is the public outing
Of her.
of this girl. And how letting the community know. Now, yes, they're not publishing to protect this child's privacy, but you know that right-wing news media outlets published, and it doesn't take much when you know Jessica Norton is the girl's mother to quickly find out on social media who this child is.
Right.
Well, and I think a big part of what's missing from just the whole conversation is what is the purpose of sports?
Right.
That's right.
Why are we doing this activity? Why are we encouraging our children to do this activity? What is the purpose of sports? It is to teach us to be part of a team, to teach us to come together in victory and defeat, to teach us to work together through our differences, to use our different strengths and different weaknesses to become more than what we were. You know, that's what sports is about. Right. This whole other part, you're missing the whole heart of the situation, even having the conversation. These sports in schools, kids' sports, should be about kids playing together.
And my thing is, where is the data coming from? Who's making the stereotypes? Because they're like, oh, you know, trans girls are more stronger, because of they weren't born female at birth, they're more stronger, so it gives them an advantage, or they have bigger hands, or have bigger feet that make them run faster. Like, who is?
Well, this goes back to
all these stereotypes.
White people.
Where's the data?
White people. We're the originators of these things. Okay.
Like, who's determined all this
and I
stuff?
think I do. It's true, and I do actually. I think it's important that we understand too that according to court documents filed with the 2021 federal lawsuit challenging the law on the girl's behalf, she has identified as female since before elementary school and has been using a girl's name since second grade.
Wow.
At age 11, she began taking testosterone blockers, and at 13 started taking estrogen to begin puberty as a girl. Her gender has also been changed on her birth certificate. A judge dismissed the lawsuit last month, but gave the family until next month to amend it for reconsideration. Florida is it is like the swamp down there. Like what I hate even using the swamp.
Florida
Use that.
is a lot of swamp.
So
it's
this
like
kid
the
was in the
armpit,
closet and safely passing transition.
and passing
socially
socially for years.
It's the point of sports, because I didn't hear you laid a lot of wonderful things out. Genital inspections, does it say it was a specific? Because that is
that was at a
disturbing.
time. You do know that at one time, like that
Was it?
was a thing. Like that was.
Boomers
a
are
thing.
crazy.
Boomers
She was
are
in second
crazy.
grade, so it wasn't like she was,
Well, she's been identified as a girl before
right.
elementary school, so that means even before kindergarten. So, I mean, this is something that like
So where was that opportunity for all of this competitive?
Who's to say she's more stronger?
Who's to say she's more?
not?
That is absolutely accurate.
She must be killing the game over there. That's what it is. They mad.
I think
That's right.
if she was all of the things that they are, saying
Right.
that makes her a danger, why did it take 2.5 seasons for anybody to notice?
And we've covered Jennifer. It's literally. I'm like, what right wing? Every single right wing. There's a headline for every single right wing MAGA talking point, every single one of them. And
because there's always.
I mean, there's always, right? And so
They
the
pay
next
for
one
them.
we've covered Jennifer McCary, covered a headline, and then we covered our sports, right? And now we're going to cover pronouns because pronouns are so difficult for people to get. And this one is actually Virginia. So Virginia Supreme Court backs fired teacher who refused to use transgender students' pronouns. Supreme Court of Virginia on Thursday. This article was dated. This is from the Virginia Mercury, December 14th. So Supreme Court of Virginia, mid-December, reversed a lower court's decision by reinstating a lawsuit brought by a former West Point, go figure, high school teacher after he was fired for refusing to refer to a transgender student by his requested pronouns. Peter Vlaming, a former high school French teacher, refused to use male pronouns to refer to a student who had recently undergone a gender transition and a legal name change. Vlaming said doing so went against his religious beliefs and violated his right to free speech, according to court records. Vlaming filed a $1 million lawsuit after the school board fired him for violating the school division's anti-discrimination and anti-harassment policies. However, the King William Circuit Court dismissed his case, finding that Vlaming did not provide valid reasons that the law could accept his suit. So they said, you don't have standing. In his opinion, this is what's scary, and we talked about this before recording. What's scary is, in his opinion, Virginia Supreme Court Justice D. Arthur Kelsey wrote that Vlaming's rights were violated by the board and that his claim should go forward. So this is his quote, compelling an educator's speech or silence on such a divisive issue would cast, quote, a pall of orthodoxy over the classroom on a topic, right, that has produced a passionate political and social debate, Kelsey wrote. And this is where I side note and say, please start using 2023 language. It really, like the pall of orthodoxy. The opinion said the Virginia Constitution seeks to protect diversity of thought, diversity of speech, diversity of religion, and diversity of opinions. The court's decision was a blow to school leaders and advocates from parts of the Commonwealth who urged the Supreme Court of Virginia to uphold the lower court's dismissal in an amicus brief. Equality Virginia and our allies are still analyzing the ruling, but one thing is abundantly clear. Virginia's students should be treated with dignity, especially in the public school system, said Nerissa Rahman, Executive Director of Equality Virginia, in an email to the Mercury. LGBTQ plus youth deserve safety, respect, and the opportunity to thrive. We will keep fighting for them until that goal is a reality for all students, regardless of where they live in the Commonwealth.
Well, and I think, to me, this brings up, two kind of big questions. One is, yes, everybody has the right to their beliefs. But as we've seen, in the past, especially related to civil rights cases, the court has ruled many times before, that doesn't necessarily guarantee you the right to be able to practice those beliefs in every space, especially if the practice of those beliefs hurts somebody else or infringes upon somebody else's rights. And so I think, and you see this a lot now, and it seems like it kind of goes back and forth sometimes depending on where it's happening. But these rehashings of kind of, old cases to just see just how far can this religious freedom be pushed? Like how much can we take our religious right and infringe it upon, other people's rights? But the other part of this too is what kind of doors are you opening up when you do that? Because we have this conversation, when we have this conversation about religious rights and stuff in our country, it's very Christianity centric. And so, you kind of get this, tunnel vision eyesight that we're just talking about Christianity or a specific type of Christianity or a religious belief just based on, LGBTQ rights or anything like that. But as we were talking about, before we started the show, you have people who hold that the belief that the earth is flat. And that's not just like an outside random belief for them. It's a belief very much centered in biblical text and their interpretation of it and their religious rights. And so when you have a religious belief that contradicts fact, at what point do you say, hey, we respect your religious belief, but we have to teach facts and science? And
then you get Ben Shapiro, though. Facts don't care about your feelings, Cody. And then there's a debate about what is fact and what is truth and truthiness.
I mean, alternative.
Well,
facts,
there's what is fact and what is science, and and
what's
that is
duplicatable.
That is something supported by evidence, duplicated evidence.
I believe in this theory as well. But, as far as evidence, it really doesn't work when you're talking about certain theological frameworks. I mean, we could sit here and say, oh, well, it's my religious belief as a Southern Baptist that slavery is moral and is defensible in the Bible. And if I was a school teacher and I said, well, I'm not going to teach that slavery is immoral, I'm not going to teach this because it violates my religious. It's pretty much the same thing, because after the Bosley decision in 2020, with the extension of civil rights to trans folks and LGBT, specifically, we get into a very similar issue on that level. And it does become down like you said, it doesn't really matter. But one step further. I want to quote
that's
something.
The question they're trying to answer, though, is faith fact?
Well, here's the fact.
Fact. I'm sorry. The only thing that is not duplicatable in this world, if every single one of them set on fire, is the freaking Bible or the Torah or any of them. But let me tell you something. You set every math book on fire in this world, I'll be able to redo a math book for you, right? Because we know how to get those answers.
But that's what they're pushing for. They're pushing for rulings that support faith as fact.
But here's the thing. Even if we quote the Bible, if we set down any atheistic or theistic or non-theistic views or arguments, and we say, well, let's quote the Bible. We forget Matthew 6:5, which says, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet. And when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father, which is in secret. And thy Father will see it in secret, shall reward thee openly. Because this idea that it needs to be in the public sphere, in the arena, that it has to be seen, that my belief has to be validated in this room as I'm paid by a public official as a teacher, or otherwise that's an offense to me. Talk about snowflake.
Well, and that's the rest of Pandora's box in that conversation too, is, base the assumption that they win these religious rights. And you start to build laws and societal rules and stuff around these. Well, how many different just Christian religions are there? At what point is it, well,
Versions of
okay,
the Bible.
but we only follow the Catholic belief
Right.
ones, and so now it's illegal for you to be a Protestant or an evangelical or some other different way. Now you can't be Lutheran or LDS or
Right.
and so that's also the Pandora's box that you begin opening is yes, you have to respect people's beliefs, but once you get too far down that road of just allowing the religious beliefs to have free reign, at some point you create a conflict with everybody.
And that, states' rights, the other side of this argument, if you can imagine a United States where we have a Mormon state and we have Catholic states and we have Baptist states and we have Southern Baptist states, you imagine driving across this nation and the variation in the laws, your protections, your safety, your security, your family, and then never mind when you have religious states, imagine the persecution to all those other denominations that are not recognized by the state. It's an inevitability.
Well, and people don't like to differentiate the fact that the reason why there is a federal government and a state government, the reason why there's not just 50 different countries, why there's 50 different United States, the reason why the federal government exists is because not everything should be state by state.
Correct.
And specifically in regards to things like human rights. Human rights trump states' rights. I should be able to travel anywhere in my country and be subject to the same protections as I would be anywhere else.
That's right.
And that's why there's those things that shouldn't be states' rights.
But
if everything should be states' rights, then we shouldn't have a federal government.
It doesn't even feel that way, though. Right now, if you go to Texas or go to Florida, you scared for your life. And other states right now.
My daughter went in September to Texas to visit her boyfriend's family. And I was already, I straight up was like, wait, what? And I'm like, I first words of my mouth are like, you are a 23-year-old, woman. You're just not safe there. Like, and she was just going for 7 days to visit the boyfriend's family, which, by the way, they're very nice people. But my definite surprise to see the 1776 shirt that the dad was wearing in a video, and I was like, oh no, oh no. And so I just had to, but I heard something the other day, which I'm just going to briefly say, we all need to start making 1831 for like Bacon's Rebellion. We just need to start we need to make them in the same font as 1776, and but do 1831, like the American flag, everything. Like make it a carbon copy of those 17, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about. You've seen them. It's that weird font with you know what I'm talking about. We need to do that same one in 1831. And then, so that way people ask us like, hey, what? Why are you wearing 1831? And start talking to people about Bacon's Rebellion. You know what I mean? Like, and just like being like, well, that's my favorite date. We're going to talk about history. It really is like, that's really where we're getting. Right?
Yeah, but with the state law, it really has changed a lot. My thing, so, a couple of my favorite movies, my family will heartily support this statement is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. We'll watch that 10 times in the month of December. But also the Family Vacation one, that big family road trip has just always been, something that I thought was really cool. Always wanted to do it. And luckily I did get to do it. I'd love to do it again, with my children a little bit older so we could experience it in a different way. But, looking at it, I couldn't. There's states that I don't feel like my family's safe in.
That's right.
Even just driving through. If I wanted to road trip again across the country, back to Oregon or California or whatnot, I would have to drive up through Canada to do it. Because I just can't. I had to tell my sister in the last, couple times the last year, got some family in Tennessee. She came out to visit them, and she came out to visit Florida, and she asked me, she's, hey, I'm going to be out, kind of close to you. And in any other situation, I'd happily pop on over for a weekend, make that 12-hour drive.
Not going to Tennessee.
Hang out with the family. But I had to tell her, I was like, no, I'm not. I won't take my family to Tennessee. I won't take my family to Florida. It's nothing to do with you. I love you so much. But we're just not safe there.
That's right. Not
That's
safe
like
for you.
every other black person trying to go.
I was about to
Yeah.
say.
To the
I literally
South.
was about to say road trips.
Yeah.
You know, are just not. You know, when you know, I have friends who have shared stories of road trips in recent. You know what I mean? Just road and my friends of color are like, my black friends are like, listen, this experience just happened to me 9 months ago, you know, and when we were on a road trip with my family, my kids, and the way I was treated, and it's, I mean, it is appalling that is 2023 and we're having to have these conversations, but these conversations are super important. And this has been an amazing podcast with really great guests. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you for
probably
having
time to go
us.
to the after party now because we've been recording for a hot minute. And
I know we're
Did we break the record?
well, we're
the longest
always,
episode?
Yeah,
we're
maybe.
always
Okay.
we're always such a mess as far as time goes. Like
we
we're just like we're like
are.
let's just talk.
I know
And
we are.
if our listeners,
We're gonna have to.
you know, they can just
I mean,
keep
yeah.
on listening to the rest of the show.
Or
To
right,
finish the
right,
episode.
right. I mean, there are like supposedly there are all these rules and like you know, you want to keep between 45 minutes and an hour,
Yeah.
but I'm just kind of like, you know, I don't really like these rules.
If we go long enough, we'll do two-part episode.
That's what. See,
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
two-part
we split it
episode.
into two
Yeah, that's
episodes
what
if
we
it goes
did.
too long.
Part
Yeah.
one, part two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't want to miss something.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You
Yes.
don't want to miss, you know, anything like that. I think it's
But yes, thank you both for being here.
Thank you for
amazing.
having us. Like we had some good conversations.
Yeah, we did. We had a
Absolutely.
good one. We're looking forward to it. So yeah, it's probably time for a potty break. But
Absolutely. Everyone go visit the Thriving Transmen of Color. Go to their website. Follow them on Instagram. Follow them on social medias. Keep up with what they're doing. They're amazing. Both of them, Mel Howard and Amore Harrell. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our TikTok is
Oh, yeah,
official TTMOC, and that's
Follow
our X as well is official TTMOC. Our Instagram and Facebook is Thriving Transmen of Color. So.
Official TTMOC. I have to look that up.
Yep.
We mutual each other.
Yes, we will definitely get you plugged up and we'll get this promoted too.
Absolutely, and if y'all want any of the bags, like I said, they $30.
Oh, I'm getting one of the bags. That's happening.
I'm
There we
getting
go.
a bag.
That's happening. You didn't see me
Anybody.
open my wallet to see if I had $30 cash in there right now.
listen,
That's what
I
I
was
did. I
like-
only got 23, so I'm gonna have to get you the rest. But
I
I'm
was
getting
like
the bag.
side.
We take cash app.
Yeah, you take
I
cash
got you
app? Okay.
before you leave.
I was taking side. I was side. I know. I'm like, I think Cody's getting his wallet out.
That's what I was doing. I was like, I got $30 in the wallet right now.
Any of the listeners, if y'all want them, like we got pictures and everything, just email us, thrivingtransmenofcolor@gmail.com. Come get your bag. It's honestly the hottest thing in the season right now.
Love it.
You heard the man. You heard the man.
Heard it. Yay.
Thanks, y'all. Good night.
Thank you.
Talking Transparency is brought to you by the Kalos Coalition. Our theme music is by SKS. If you enjoyed the show, please check us out on all the socials at talkingtransparency.com or check out our link tree at Talking Trans. Visit our website at talkingtransparency.com and please consider supporting us at patreon.com/talkingtransparency.